Hi, my name is Izzy Rivera. I'm going to be demonstrating for you the installation process of Flexum's new Perma rail track mount system. The Perma rail track mount system has been thoroughly thought out and engineered with a couple of key things in mind. And number one being the fact that you've got to have a transducer that is applied with a proper force to the pipe that is a very secure system. The Perma mount system has a spring mechanism that has been designed into it that the transducers will be applied to the pipe with just the right amount of force. We'll also be using the Perma pad, which is the non-liquid grease that Flexum has innovated, and this design has been thought about in terms of getting just the right amount of force on that pad, and also in terms of pipe vibration, in terms of pipe expansion, with the spring loading on these transducers, it will be able to tolerate that very nicely. I have in my hands two different track sizes. This is the M size track, the larger one. This is the Q size track. They fit respectively our Q and M size transducers. This Q track is the one I'm going to use in the demonstration. It has the transducers already loaded in. When you program up your meter, you're going to get to a point where the meter is going to tell you what the spacing distance of the transducers have to be set at. And at that point in time, you'll stop with the programming on the meter, you'll go to the pipe, and you'll begin the installation of your transducer mount. So now the first thing you have to do is determine what type of mounting configuration you're going to be using based on what spacing distance the meter has prompted you to set your transducers at. Now, this M size track mount system here, the increments here go from -2 inch to +2 inch. So the maximum distance I could space for a one-track rail mount would be 4 inches. If I have a spacing distance that's greater than 4 inches, I would have to put the two tracks side by side on the pipe, and I would have to then space the distance out accordingly. And in this type of scenario, where the transducers are on the same side of the pipe, we call that two sound paths, where the sound beam travels out and echoes off the far pipe wall and back to the return transducer. There will be situations where with two sound paths, your signal strength might not be strong enough. This happens with difficult type liquids, slurries, or when you get to old pipes that may have a lot of scaling buildup. And when you look at your signal diagnostic, if you're not satisfied with the signal strength, typically that's a signal strength of 3 bars or greater, you may find that you change your mounting configuration to one sound path. Now, in one sound path, your tracks wind up on opposite sides. Your transducers wind up on opposite sides of one another. Now, that could either be like this, depending on the spacing distance that's going to be required, or we could wind up with the tracks like this, and we'll show you that on the pipe. Could wind up with two sound paths like that, two sound paths like that, or one sound path like this, or like this. Now, so the first thing to do is, once the meter gives you the spacing distance, if it's greater than the distance for one track, you would have to get a tape measure and a marker. Let's say, for example, it gives you a 10-inch spacing distance. You would mark that out, make the marks on the 10 inches, and then you would align the two tracks up to center it around the spacing distance recommended by the meter. And that would be true also if you decided you had to change to a single sound path where your other track is now going to be on the opposite side of the pipe. You'd have to get a little bit creative to measure your 10-inch distance from here to the other side of the pipe. You could use a flange if there's a flange nearby to measure your point from here and your point to here. You could use a straight edge, something like the strap that we use, that we supply to mount the track mount. That could be used as a straight edge to use to mount your distance, measure your distance across. Okay, now I'm going to go with I'm going to opt with the single mounting solution here to demonstrate to you. Here's the track assembly completed with the transducers mounted in. Comes apart into two sections. This is the base section that installs to the pipe, and the transducers will then come over on the top. If you have to remove a transducer because you're going to use a second track, this screw here, if you remove this screw, the transducer will come straight out with the mounting hardware. And you can pull this transducer out then and mount it in the other track. Okay, so now we're going to mount it up. We're going to start, we're going to have a couple of what we call quick release straps, like so. Now, with these straps, you'll have a slide bolt. So the slide bolt goes onto the strap, over the pipe. Like so. Get the second strap. Okay, we forgot to put the slide bolt on. Start tightening down the first one. Get the base unit. Slide the other strap into place. Start to tighten down on this guy. Okay, before it's tight all the way, we can level it out. You might want to step back a little bit, catch the line of the track, get it level with the line of the pipe. This looks pretty good. You can tighten it down all the way now. Now, as far as where I oriented the track, whether I put the track here or put the track here, really doesn't make any difference. So I can start to tighten down on this. Now I have a washer and a nut that'll go on this bolt. Okay, tighten that up with a wrench. You might be thinking, how tight does this need to be? Well, we don't exactly have a torque spec, but as we tighten this up, it's pulling that piece up, and it's pulling the strap tighter, so everything is really getting very snug here. And I think you can really kind of gauge it by feel, more or less, when you're tight enough. Okay, now we're going to get the upper part. Now here we have to space this out to the spacing distance. Now let's say that the spacing distance was 2 inches. So we have a 0 mark here. I'll set this at the 1 inch mark and this at the 1 inch mark. I tighten it down with the screwdriver. Okay, so you'll see that there is a metal plate here. You may not be able to see that, but there's a metal plate here that will line up with the 1 inch mark. Okay, and I'll do that with the other transducer. Okay, and we'll line up with this 1 inch mark. Now I've got to put the coupling pads on the base of the transducers. The one thing, here's your coupling pad. What you want to do is just lightly lubricate the pad with the coupling grease. Just a very, very thin layer of grease on both sides. One thing it does is it provides a little bit of rust corrosion resistance for the pipe, and also it helps the pad to stick to the transducer. Second pad. Okay, now this will just pop right onto the base track. Now there's an arrow here, and we'll make that arrow face in the direction of flow. These screws here will go into the screw holes here. The threads on these screws do not go all the way up the screw. So you tighten this screw up until it stops tightening anymore. It'll run out of threads. So it really fixes the amount of force that we have, that we're applying with the transducer on the pipe and up against the coupling pad, and we have the perfect amount of force. We can handle vibrations well if there's some expansion, contraction of the pipe. And that's it. We're all set. You might want to take a little peek under there. Make sure that your coupling pad is in place. Okay, so if you find out that you have to adjust the spacing, one of the reasons for that might be to peak out the signal amplitude. You would loosen up on one of these guys. You can slide it over. Probably going to have to loosen up on the outer screw as well. So we have to loosen up on both of them. You would slide it over, and you want to keep your eye on that coupling pad and make sure it stays underneath the transducer. If not, if you have to pull it all off again and to reposition the spacing, then do so, and then tighten it all down. So that's pretty much it. Pretty simple installation. It's pretty intuitive. If you're just mounting with one track, where you have the distance to mount one track and put the two transducers into the single track, it's very easy. If you're dealing with a bigger pipe, you'll have a second track, and you'll have your transducer in the second track. Again, that's a pretty easy solution. You can measure out with a tape measure from here to here to get your spacing distance between the two. So that does it.
Thank you for spending some time with us today. All of us here at Flexum look forward to hearing how we can help you achieve all of your measurement goals for your facility.